Okay, so all right, let's start. I think so far the most talked about word in 2020, no doubt it will be COVID-19. COVID-19 has been a very powerful disruption to the already disruptive world we live in. The virus itself, as well as the approach we have put into place to stop the spreading, have undermined the assumptions and strategies leading to many businesses either going bust or on the verge of going bust or barely holding on. And because of that reality, now for the lucky surviving ones, transformation and change are not options anymore. They are the need of the moment. So here I would like to invite you to do the first word cloud. Please go to menti.com and type in the code 710647 and type into your answers. What are some of the challenges or difficulties you have seen or experienced during a transformation? Oh, that's my cat. Remember the code. I'm going to share screen of the menti.com. So some of the challenges or difficulties you have experienced, like isolation, resistance, uncertainty, mindset, support, doubts, insecurity, unclear communication, limited resource, survive, past, change for work style, resilience, endless work, continued communication, chaos, resource, quick adoption, unmotivated, change of work style. And we can see a lot of answers are coming in. Thank you very much for sharing. Let's just wait for a few minutes to see more answers. I can also see fear, people management, burnout, confusion, change, miscommunication, performance tracking, new regulations, job security, disconnect, and so on. Buying, that's a good one. Fear is the obstacle for many things. Right? Okay, we're just going to stop here. And if you have other answers, please keep typing. No problem. Now, let's go back to the presentation that we have. So first of all, thank you for your participation. Now, noticing what we have just shared, right, I'm going to conclude in big ways the obstacles or difficulties we have experienced in a transformation. It's about people. They are people problems. People have fear. People have resistance. People don't understand why we need to change. So in its essence, transformation is actually all about transferring people. And because transformation is all about people, so here we're going to have a look at two underlying assumptions that we have about people. So number one assumption is this: people are objects whose primary purpose is to serve my needs. Now, that's the first assumption. Now, the second assumption is this. People are people who have their own needs, objectives, desires, concerns, and challenges. And all those objectives, needs, and burdens, and so on, they also matter. So now leading or managing a transformation, which assumption guides us, will ultimately determine everything we do and subtly guide and influence our strategies, actions, and the outcomes. So now let's look at the two assumptions in greater details. First, let's look at the first assumption, people are objects. From a mindset perspective, we call this assumption having an inward mindset. And whenever I'm inward or have an inward mindset, it automatically means others don't matter like I matter. And because they don't matter, but they're also people, right? So they have their needs, objectives, challenges, and so on. But because they don't matter to me, all those needs, objectives, they all don't matter to me. And that means my objectives and behaviors are totally self-focused. It is as if other people to me are not people anymore. They are objects. It means if they are working for me, helping me to achieve things, I see them as vehicles that I can use. If they are creating trouble for me, then I see them as obstacles I can blame. But if what they do have no real value for me, then I see them as irrelevancies that I can ignore. So to understand this better, just look at this picture. Just look at the chairs on this picture and their position compared to the parking space, right? Now, if I imagine this, if I'm using the chair to reserve a parking space for myself, then the chairs is basically a vehicle that I can use. But if it's somebody else's chair sitting on my parking space, then the chair becomes an obstacle that I can blame. But let's say if I don't have a car and I don't have a parking space, then whatever the position is, the chair is irrelevant to me that I can ignore. And so this is the inward mindset. And it's very clear that whenever I'm inward, my behaviors, objectives, and strategies only focus on two things. Number one is what I am trying to do. And number two is what value do others have for me. So we can also see very clear the inward mindset is actually a very self-focused mindset. Right? And when us individuals and our organizations are consciously and unconsciously guided by this assumption, by this inward mindset, then the approach to change management we adopt is largely a fixing strategy. And that means in everything I do, my primary focus will be like this. How can I correct you? How can I get through you? How can I make you understand? How can I convince you? Or how do I need to work with you to get you to understand me or work with me? How do I get your buy-in? And this fixing strategy or this approach, with this approach, the time allocation is largely titled towards fixing and correcting others, just like the diagram. And this approach will further alienate people, weakens collaboration, increases feelings of distrust, and burdens or destroys relationships, source relationships. Now, on the other hand, let's look at assumption number two, people are people. Similarly, from a mindset perspective, we call this assumption having an outward mindset. And whenever I'm outward or having an outward mindset, it naturally means others matter just like I matter. In which case, it means others are people to me. And because they are people to me, they have their needs, objectives, challenges, burdens, and so on. And they all matter to me. Therefore, my objectives and behaviors take others into account. And that doesn't mean I'm going to do their jobs for them. That's not my job. I'm not going to do it. But it simply means I'm going to do my job in a way that is mindful of my negative impact on other people. Now, if I can help them with their tasks, then great, I will help them. If I can't, it's fine, but at least I will be very careful and be mindful if I'm causing more trouble for them in the way that I'm doing my job. And again, to understand this better, let's look at another two pages. Now, the image number one is in a subway. This young boy is helping this wheelchair to position and be fixed in the position with his hand and foot while he was actually looking at the video on the mobile phone. Right? If we can help, we will. Now, the second picture is on a bus. Now, a little baby girl wants to eat her ice cream. Now, eating ice cream on the bus could be very messy. It could be dripped cream or melted ice cream everywhere. If the bus stopped all of a sudden, and then she might fall. Right? There are a lot of implications to go with this. But she still wants to eat her ice cream. But then she can eat the ice cream in a way that is mindful of her potential negative impact on other people. Therefore, she was eating the ice cream next to a bin. Right? So it's also very clear that our mindset is actually a very impact-focused mindset. And when us as individuals and our organizations are consciously or unconsciously guided by this assumption, by this our mindset, then our approach to change management is largely a developmental strategy. And that means when I do things, when I think about strategies, policies, and changes, and so on, I will be focusing on what are your needs and concerns. How will you be affected by this change? Or why is this change difficult for you? Or what obstacles am I personally imposing? Or is there an organization putting up that I can help remove? Right? What support do you need to make it easier for you? Or what areas do I need to change to make things better or easier for you? Now, with this approach, our time allocation is largely titled towards inclusiveness, development, and growth. You can also very clearly see that this approach helps to strengthen relationships, trust, collaboration, and it also inspires people to be more creative, innovative, and self-accountable. So we just look at the two assumptions as known as the two different mindsets. The inward mindset that invites bluntness, silos, blame, resistance, and low morale. And the outward mindset, on the other hand, strengthens awareness, collaboration, accountability, innovation, and engagement. Now, a good news is this. Nearly every single human being and every organization is fixed mindset. It means sometimes we're more inward, sometimes we're more outward. With some people, we're more inward. With some other policies, we're more outward. However, the thing is, when individuals and the organization demonstrate more often our mindset, addresses awareness, collaboration, accountability, and so on, transformation itself is more likely to succeed. So when we lead and manage transformation, we need not only focus on the strategies, policies, behaviors, but we also need to pay more attention to our individual as well as our collective mindset, right? And but you know what most organizations do when they want to embark on this transformation journey? They prescribe behaviors necessary to achieve the target. So you will see a lot of managers or companies will say things like, hey guys, we cannot do the same thing but expect different results. So we need to do things differently. And that's the common approach. However, if we just look at this diagram, if we're only attending to our behavior, strategies, and policies, what are we not attending to? It's very clear that our mindset hasn't moved, hasn't changed. Right? So a question for us to reflect on is this. What has been your experience with this approach? Is this sustainable? Is this long-lasting? Does it actually lead us to the desired results? Something to think about. Actually, the consulting firm McKinsey, after decades of observation and research, they have concluded organizations that identify and address the pervasive mindsets at the beginning are 4 times more likely to succeed in any organizational change efforts than the ones that overlook this stage. So what it means is this. If we want to achieve the desired results or desired transformation target, we need not only focusing on our behavior, strategies, and policies, we also need to work to change or shift the underlying mindsets that is informing and driving our behaviors and so on. So it looks like this. We first work on change mindset. And when mindset is changed, our behaviors, strategies, and policies will shift accordingly, and we will naturally achieve the desired results. So now a very simple question that naturally come to all of us is this. If we know the mindset, then how do we turn outward? How do we change our mindset? Right? So now let's have a look. Another thing is to invite a shift in mindset and to develop accountable people. The key is to heighten self-awareness. So now I would like to invite you to participate in the second word cloud. Again, open menti.com and type in the same code 710647 and type into your answer. What are some of the ways you know and apply to heighten self-awareness? I'm going to change the screen so we can look at the results. So some of the ways that we do, we get feedback, we have self-reflection, communicate, silence. I suppose some people sit in silence and they reflect. That also works. Mindfulness, one-on-one sessions, listening, understand, communication to team, be open to feedback, debriefing with team, asking questions, that's great. Open discussions. Town hall, that's also very useful. Reflection, feedback, self-reflection. Know yourself more. Be sensitive. That's a very interesting answer. Walk the ground. Deep thinking. Active listening, that's wonderful. Are you having more answers? Humble yourself. Wow. Clear objective. Listen to feedback. Curiosity, that's great. Focus group. Openness. Results. Constant reflections. Constant communication. Empathy. Ask. Well, this is all very helpful. Now, thank you very much again for sharing with us. The bigger the word, the bigger the font, that means more people are having the same answers. So you can say top number 4, self-reflection, feedback, reflection, and communication. Thank you very much for sharing with me. I'm just going to go back and we will continue the session. Thank you for sharing all those wonderful answers. Now, again, if you look at the answers that we have, there are so many ways to do it, right? And here I'm going to have a little conclusion. When it comes to self-awareness and mindset change, let's look at the approaches listed or summarized by little me and see what happens. Right, first, let's look at the traditional or conventional approach. So for example, 360-degree feedback, assessment, profiling tests, personality tests, coaching and consulting, and reflective conversations. So with coaching and counseling, reflection conversations, I've added a star after it. I'm going to explain why in just a little bit. Now, all those conventional or traditional approach have something in common, and we call those approach an outside looking in approach. What it means is all those things have one thing in common. It's other people or a third party telling you how you need to change, why you need to change, and in which areas you need to change. Now, those outside looking approach are great for heightened self-awareness, and mindset change. But the thing is, they are not complete. And the reason is, whenever we think about change, the key thing is we, as individuals, need to develop the willingness to change. And that willingness is something come from within. So another even more powerful way, or powerful approach compared to this outside looking in approach is called a inside looking in approach. And this inside looking in approach might include methods such as coaching and counseling or reflective conversations. So now you notice it's the coaching, counseling, reflective conversations on both outside looking in and inside looking in methods. And but they are different. They're different when they're doing differently. So just a quick example, if I'm doing coaching with an outside looking approach, then as a coach, normally I will be sharing good things about myself and not so good things about others. What I have done that was very successful and what other people that have done that wasn't very successful. And then the conclusion is learn from me and don't learn from them. And that's an outside looking approach. But on the contrary, if I'm going to be coaching and counseling with an inside looking approach, then as a coach, I will be sharing a lot of bad stories about myself and good stories about others. And that bad stories about myself is going to invite people to deeply reflect on their lives and the mistakes that they have made in the past. So the inside looking approach is more powerful when it comes to heightened self-awareness and mindset change. Now, other methods or approach from the inside looking in perspective might be this: learning about the two different mindsets, what is inward, what is outward. And we can learn how to turn inward, the science behind why we become so self-focused. And here we're going to explore the deeper choices we have, and we're going to explore the inward mindset styles, how they show up, how do we actually demonstrate or notice when we have an inward mindset. And collusion, it means when two people or two parties are mutually inward towards each other. And then that's still not enough. The next step is actually to learn and experience how to work with an outward mindset. That learning and experiencing is going to put us in an even better place to be more committed to adapt and adopt an outward mindset. And in this little webinar, I'm also going to teach you, introduce a very simple tool that you can use working and living with an outward mindset. So now let's look at this tool. The tool is actually called the outward mindset pattern. We also call it S.A.M. Later you will know why. It has three parts. Number one is this: see others. And in see others, we try our best to understand other people's needs, objectives, challenges, burdens, worries, and so on. And when we understand their needs, objectives, and burdens, and so on, we naturally want to see how we can change for them, what we can do to adjust our efforts to make it more useful or helpful to those people. So adjust efforts is the second part. And if we are truly outward, truly seeing the other as a person or other group as a people, then we cannot just stop here, because then we want to know if our adjustment or if our efforts actually work. So naturally, we go to the third part, measure impact. So here we're going to think about how we can hold ourselves accountable for the impact we have on others and their work. So see others, adjust effort, and measure impact. That's why we call our mindset pattern S.A.M. So now, how do we use it? Now, I'm just going to give you a very simple example, leading transformation. Right? So the first question is to identify, when leading or managing a transformation, who do I actually impact? Now, from an organization perspective, so now I'm going to put my organization in the center of the diagram on the right hand, and then think about who are the groups of people or who are the individuals I have an impact on. So, for example, it could be my stakeholders or investors. It could be the larger community my company is in, or it could be the customers that we have, and also don't forget the employees we have. Right, so that's from an organization perspective. Now, on an individual perspective, so now I'm going to put myself in the middle of the diagram. I might affect or potentially affect my manager, my peers, my customers, and people reporting to me, my reports. So in each of those directions, I can actually list the names of my managers, my peers, my reports, and so on, and really think about those people that I have potentially negative and positive impact on them. And after we identified who I impact, the next step is going to look at some simple questions. So here I'm going to share a very simple template to reflect and act within our mindset. So here I put the questions into three categories: see others, adjust efforts, and measure impact. Now let's think about the people we just identified and want to improve things with. First, look at the see others questions. So some of the questions could be like this: what is this person in this situation? You can actually imagine a very particular situation wanting or trying to accomplish. Or how has the COVID-19 affected this person's work? Or how have transformation strategies or policies affected this person's work? Or what are their biggest headaches? Now, after the see others questions, move to the adjust effort questions. So something to reflect on. How have I gotten in their way or added to their challenges, trials, burdens, and pains? Or think of any ways, large, medium, or small, that I have mistreated or neglected this person. And then number 3, in light of all of this I have just reflected, identify something I feel like I could do or should do for this person. And here I would suggest you take most of the time and the effort to reflect on this question 3. Take a pen and piece of paper, write down your action plans, be very specific, and make the action plans very executable. Put a lot of thoughts into it. Get very curious about how you can be helpful to them, and then you will work the wonders. Now, the last step, measure impact. Only have one question to consider. How can I keep myself accountable for having a positive impact in this situation and on this person or these people? So this is a very simple template. I encourage you to, after this webinar, just go and use it with your colleagues, with your family, and with your boss, and so on. So this will be all of the content I would like to share today with you. Now let's go into a very simple Q&A session. If you have questions or concerns or something you don't understand, please let me know in the chat box. I'm going to pick up your questions and answer it. Thank you. It was very clear. Thanks. Now, the question from, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your name. How to manage when some are inward and do not understand the concepts? Now, that is a great question, and we see that very, very often. And the thing is, so for our business, we do a lot of in-house facilitation and consulting work with organizations. So it's very common when the leadership learn the concept, but lower level people don't understand what we're talking about. So it's this very typical question. When other people are inward, what do I do? Now, the thing about mindset is this. I have only control over my own mindset. So I'm going to give you a little analogy here. Let's say two options that you have dealing with people. One is if this person react to you, you react to them. That's the first option. The second option is this person is reacting to you, but you are consistent in the way that you're doing things, in the way that you're working towards objectives. Which one is a better solution? Actually, number two is a better solution. Because if you choose number one, when others react, then you react to them. Then actually the moment you react is the greatest puppet show in the world. Because now you have to dance to every move the other person is moving. You are totally controlled by the other who is inward and don't know the concept. And so a better way to do is stay consistent and steadfast and be outward. Try your best to be outward in your interactions with other people. And if they're inward, let them be. It's okay. Because for us to be outward, it's a very powerful invitation for them to become outward as well, naturally, without even learning about this concept. But if we don't do it, if we react, then we're inward and nothing is going to change. So let's look at other questions. I hope I answered. I hope you can find some clarity in the answer. Now, how do I know if my organization is predominantly operating with an outward mindset or inward mindset? That is another great question. If you want to know, a quick answer is you can take the assessment on our website. We do have a website that measures organizational as well as individual mindset, whether you're more inward or outward. If you don't want to take the mindset assessment, or you find it maybe a little bit problematic to having so many people taking it, then I would suggest to notice what people are talking about. Imagine during the lunch, what might be people talking about in an inward mindset organization? Right? If they are self-focused, then some of the topics shows up very frequently. Could be, how can I get ahead? How can I look good? How can I get away with doing little? How can, a lot of self-focused questions. But on the other hand, if the organization is predominantly outward, then the topics or conversations that people naturally have will be, how can I be helpful to others? How can I change myself in order to help other people? How do I create troubles for others? It's very self-reflective. So notice the conversation is another way you can assess your organization. Next questions. I want to hear once again about the difference between coaching and counseling, outside, inside looking. Okay, no problem. So basically, if say I'm the coach and I'm coaching you with an outside looking in approach, then fundamentally I'm more likely to tell you, in this situation, I did this, it worked really well. And the other hand, the other person, he did that, and that didn't work. It was bring out a lot of negative impact. So I'm going to share good stories about myself with the outside looking in approach and have the conclusion that you should learn from me. But with an inside looking approach, me as a coach will be reflecting on what mistakes that I have made, what troubles I have created. I'll be talking about, the other day, I was so inward, I caused this trouble for other people, and then I reflected, it was not helpful. And I thought, I need to change. I might even be sharing the changes that I have made that failed. So it's another bad story about myself. And that bad story about the coach is going to deeply invite you to reflect on your own. The next one, how different is this with 360 review followed by coaching? So again, this 360 review is fundamentally an outside looking in approach, period. Now, coaching can be done with outside looking in or inside looking in. If the coaching that you're talking about is more about inside looking in, so now we're looking at 360 outside looking and coaching inside looking, great, you have a perfect solution. But if you have 360 outside looking and then another outside looking coaching session, and there is a potential that the people are being reviewed or coached might actually develop resistance to change, because it happens very often when I hear about motivational speeches. If I'm in a very inward mindset or having a very inward day, I'd be like, well, that's you, right? Why do I need to listen to you? You are great. I can't do it. So actually, you're inviting a lot of resistance. So depending on how you conduct the coaching, that makes the difference. Next question, will people not take advantage of our mindset? That's another very great question. So a lot of objections that we have when we talk about being outward and see people as people is this. A lot of people think being outward means in my behavior, I will naturally become very soft and nice. I need to be helpful. I need to be nice to them. I cannot give them feedback. I cannot be direct, and so on. And actually, that's not true, because being outward means seeing people as people. But it doesn't mean seeing everyone as nice people or nice person, right? When people make mistakes, the right way or the helpful way is actually give them feedback or correct them. And that's what you need to do with an outward mindset. But the difference is when I'm inward, I'm going to correct you and give you feedback coated with a lot of blaming emotions. And that's what people don't react very well with. So will people take advantage of our mindset? There is a potential that other people might try to take advantage. But if we are very clear about what our mindset is, and we know being outward means we can also be hard and soft in our behavior, then there is no reason we can be taken advantage of. And from Helen, am I right to say that mindset is also very much influenced by personal beliefs and upbringings? So I found this question quite common when it pops up. So now here in Arbinger, we define the word mindset as the way we see people, challenges, opportunities, and so on. And commonly, people believe the word mindset also means attitudes, the views that I have, or my personal beliefs. So I would say yes, our personal beliefs and upbringing would influence the way we see. That's for sure. But the one thing is the way we see is also influenced by other people, and a very important concept we call self-betrayal. And a lot of our beliefs of ourselves. For example, I'm not confident, I'm incapable, I'm someone who is always unlucky. Those kind of personal beliefs are actually distorted version that we have adapted or adopted when we grow up. And that's something, and that's the deeper choices we were talking about. I would recommend, if you want to learn more, you can get in contact with us, and I can share with you more about the self-betrayal or self-deception. Next one, from your experience, can you provide tips to deal with a very closed inward mindset person? Okay, my advice or my tips is this. When dealing with a very inward mindset person, the number one question I reflect on and consider is this: what does it mean to see this inward mindset person as a person? That's number one. And number two is, in my interaction with this very inward person, what does it mean to give this person a different person to respond to? It means a different me. Right? Because again, we only have control over our own mindset. So we can't just go over there and turn them around and change them. It doesn't happen. The only way we can go about this is to change ourselves and powerfully invite them to change as well. They might not accept that invitation, as a matter of fact, But as long as I'm outward, I have more chance to invite them to change. So the tips would be stay outward and let them be inward, and just noticing the inward signs and to be helpful. Now, next question. How can we help others move towards the outward mindset mentality? For example, the very first step of helping others to see others, I find that's very important to others recognize that they have an impact on others, but people might be too ingrained in their current mindset right now. That is very true, because change to most of us is very uncomfortable. We don't want to change the way we live. We don't want to change the way we work because we're used to it. Now, how do we help them? If you want to help them to heighten self-awareness on an individual level, I would recommend you to try the inside looking in approach, to have reflective conversations with them. First, reflect on your own mindset where you didn't do well. And that vulnerability is going to invite other people to be reflective as well. That's number one. Number two is, again, people feel comfortable in the way they live and work. So to help them understand the impact they have on others, sometimes, depending on the relationship you have with them, it's very simple. Sometimes you just have to say, hey, you have an impact on other people. If you have a good relationship. If you don't have a good relationship, then that obviously becomes a little more tricky. But I would say still be outward yourself. And the number three solution is actually, if you can, help this person to sign up for our workshop. Because in our workshop, we do help people to realize their impact on other people and heighten self-awareness. I'm not potentially going to do this very commercially, but it's an option you can discover. Or you can help them with some books, maybe they can read, and we can also recommend. Now, last thing, how do you neutralize or protect the hurt on ourselves by the very close inward mindset person? That, again, very interesting. It comes back to the soft and hard behavior. A lot of people think if I see other people as people, it means I need to be soft, I need to be nice. It also means I'm vulnerable and I can be hurt. That simply is not true. If you're interested, you can, again, contact us and I can share more. But to put it very simple, the worry that we have about being hurt actually is an inward mindset of ourselves. Because it's only when we're inward, we're thinking about what happens to me. If we are truly outward, we think about how can we be helpful. Now, it's a private message, so I'm not sure if I should read it. How can I set up mindset? Okay, so I think I can share this. It says, how can I set up mindset to be an outward at the same time an inward mindset to better understand others? Now the thing is, when we're inward, we don't care about the others. So when we have an inward mindset, our understanding towards others is going to be very limited. So if we want to truly understand other people, we want to be outward, period. But because every single human being is mixed mindset, it means sometimes I'm inward, sometimes I'm outward. With some people, I'm more outward. With some people, I'm more inward. It naturally happens. But that's the magic about self-awareness, because now I know the concept. The next time I notice in a conversation with, for example, David, I'm thinking about David is a jerk, and how is David affecting me, and how is David causing trouble for me? So I become very self-focused. Then knowing that, it actually demonstrates an inward mindset. I'd be like, oh shucks, I'm in the inward mindset right now. So let me recover. Let me try to calm down. Let me try to understand what David is actually saying. And that's a very good start with heightened self-awareness. Otherwise, if I'm listening to David, I'm really curious and genuinely interested in what he is saying, then no worries. I'm already more outward than inward. it's a journey. I think as someone concluded earlier, it's a journey and it needs to be continued. Thank you for all the questions. They're all great questions. I think if you have more questions, please do email us at, I'll put the email in the chat box later. And we're also going to share that in a later slide. So do email us and connect with us on social media and send us your questions. It doesn't have to be public. If you want to private message or direct message, please do so. And I will do my best to get back to you. Now, continue this session. So if you are interested in knowing more about mindset, then do visit us at our website, arbingerse.com. You can find out what programs that we have, both in person and online. And you can connect with us on LinkedIn or Facebook. We have pages. And you can, if you find our company page, you will naturally find me. So if you can connect and send messages, no problem. And engage with our consultants to have a conversation or share your feedback or your questions through emails. So here is just a page of all our social media pages and channels, as well as our email. So I hope to hear from you soon. And thank you very much for joining us today for this session.